Failures. How many of us have woken up one day and think we screwed up, messed it all up, and don't know how to rebuild or how to start? Today in the podcast, we're talking about failures and that ugly F word and what happens when we fail. Welcome to the JSS podcast. This is Byron Enriquez, the casual executive, your local finance bro. And today we're talking about something that usually can be a negative. People could talk about failing. And it got me thinking, and I was like, I've been doing this for over 20 something years, 25 years. And I've had some major failures, when things you think are supposed to be going one direction, really takes you, it takes you for a ride. But it really got me thinking, and it got me, it's one of those things that I think is if we don't learn how to deal with that failure, we're never going to become good operators. You're never going to grow. You're never going to evolve into something. There used to be a joke when I got into this business long time ago, and people would say, "You're not official until you get sued for the first time." And I know it's a bad way to think about it, but it's kind of true. So I'm going to change that a little bit. You're not official until you failed. If you failed and your deal fell apart, your borrower defaulted, your property goes into foreclosure, your investor who had committed funds says no and changes their mind. You're not official until that happens. I like to tell people it's a given. It's going to happen. So be prepared for it. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit today is how do we turn those failures, those setbacks into education? How do we turn those into a plan moving forward, right? And I think that's the most important part is when you fail, everybody always says, fail forward. And yeah, that's kind of tacky and cheesy, but to me, it's more, what are you learning from a failure? If you do fail, what does that mean? Right. And yes, sometimes they can be costly failures, and they can be situations where we lose money or we lose an opportunity. And we've seen it all, right? Loans have fallen apart. I've had deals collapse at the signing table. I've had deals fall apart. An investor has committed, and then all of a sudden you can't hear from them. You don't hear from them anymore. We've had projects that, we have our clients, construction projects go over budget. I've had projects go longer than expected. Deals change, midway through, the market changes, tariffs, outside factors, and what do you do, right? And you have to prepare for that. This is normal. This is things that tell you. This is things that are going to happen, right? But for me, it's what do these failures tell you, right? I think if you take that emotion out, right? Because again, it can be emotional when you fail and you're down on yourself and you think that, you've lost everything. But I think it's time to take a step back, right? And look at it. And it helps us look at things a little bit differently from a different vision. It tells you, where those risks exist. Where are we lacking? Are our systems missing a component? Did we miss something in our inspections? Did we miss something in our analysis? Did our spreadsheet off a little bit? Do we need to improve our underwriting? Did we mess up on our communication? Did we where is it that we miss something? Did we grow too fast? Did we get too ambitious in our project? Right? Those are all things that I think when you fail, we should be looking at. Right, taking those opportunities to build a better system, taking those opportunities to grow into something that's not saying you're not going to fail again, but we're not going to have that same failure, right? And being able to use those opportunities to grow from it, right? When you fail, you're going to have frustration, you're going to doubt yourself, you're going to panic, you're gonna be afraid, be gun shy. The biggest thing that I always say is don't overcorrect. A lot of people say, they fail once and they're like, oh, I'm never going to try that again. I'm never going to go into that marketplace. I'm never going to try that asset class anymore. And I think that's the wrong approach, right? I think it's time to slow down, take a step back and analyze, okay, so what did actually happen, right? Not the outcome, but what happened. What were the circumstances or steps that got us to that failure? Was this something that I could prevent? Was it preventable? Right? Did I move? What happened in how I moved or operated to do this? Was it something that I could have done differently? Was sometimes, we fail, but it was a calculated risk. Was this a risk that we knew could happen and we went forward anyway? Right? Um, and more importantly, how does this change how we move forward? Excuse me. How do we evolve from this? Right? Is this a bad decision that we made? Did we let emotions take over? Did did we again get ahead of our skis? All of that stuff, right, is how we analyze this. But it's time to sit back and create a better strategy, create a better system, tighten your underwriting process, tighten your metrics. What is it that went wrong? How do we fix that? Do we get a better exit strategy? Do we adjust the amount of reserves we need for projects? Do we have backup plan? What's your plan B? Do we have additional capital in place? Do you have your liquidation values correct, so how to get how to liquidate on a property if needed? These are all things that I think comes from failure, right? If you don't fail, you don't know what could go wrong. It's not always sunshines and rainbows, in this business or any business for that matter. Right? We fail, we fall down, and then there's that motivational side of how do you talk yourself back into being confident? How do you, um, how do you, you know, e- how do you get around this self doubt? And for me, I think the important part of how you do that is by really breaking down the failure and figuring out what happened, and then creating a system around it to be able to prevent that. Put new controls, new checklists, new rules. What is it that messed up? What was that kink in the armor that messed up? How do we fix that? Right. And I think those are issues that we can work through and we can grow off of and build, right? And this is something that I think uh, a good operator, somebody with long-term mentality, somebody who's looking for with the 5-year plan and vision can get past, right? If you're, again, we keep talking about that hustler mentality to a business owner, somebody with that one hustle mentality, and they went all in on this deal. And I get it. A lot of people do, especially when it's your first or second deal, and they gambled it all. And we're not gamblers. We're trying to build good systems in place. You're trying to build a business. You're trying to become successful operators in this space or whatever space you're in, right? And those guys who go all in and just that's a different mentality. And yeah, I mean that can ruin you. But we're building systems where we're taking calculated risks. We're using data. We're using analytics to be able to to forecast better, to be able to make those educated guesses. Where yeah, not all of them are going to go through, but the likelihood of them being successful is higher, right? So how do we do that? Sometimes these setbacks also protect us, right? Sometimes it's a deal that wasn't supposed to go through. A deal falls apart that wasn't a good deal, and it shouldn't have, right? So those are the things that sometimes you're looking at, and it teaches you how to look at this better. Is a project delay warranted? Was it because things were changing in the marketplace? Did it put us in a better position down the road where we were able to tighten some metrics up to be able to get you in a good position and redirected you, and you can still turn this project around? The best operators are thinking long term. You're thinking, how is this going to affect me 5 years down the road? What do I need to change? What do I need to fix to be able to have that long term success? You know, um, these setbacks should teach us something, right? You're looking at this failure as a teaching opportunity, or you're learning from something from it, so that we can build confidence. And we're building confidence because we're repeating this over and over again, right? Rinse and repeat. I can say the first time you have a setback, you feel like this is it. You feel like it's massive. It's something that you're not going to get past. Um, the 10th time it happens, yeah, not so much. You're like, hey, it's just another Tuesday, right? And you just keep going. These experiences are going to build confidence, and you're going to build the confidence of believing in yourself, believing in your system, believing in your the tools you have at your disposal to be able to get past this. And how did you do it before? Oh, you know what? I've already been through this. I know how to get past this. I know if a contractor quits on me, I know what to do. I have somebody else ready to go. If my capital dried up, oh, I know where I can turn to for more capital. If the investors pulled out of a deal, oh, you know what? I have a backup. I know where I can go get debt. I know I can go raise some more equity. There's a million things that you have, from past failures. You learn this, and you execute, right? You take a beat, take a breath, lick your wounds, and you execute, right? That's the key in this business. That's the key in growing a business, is knowing when that happens. Is I've learned from my past mistakes. How am I going to pull forward? How am I going to push forward? Sorry. Um, there comes to a time where you start realizing, deals are going to come and go. We missed opportunities. Yes. Right. There's a ton of opportunities that we miss. And that happens. Right. But how do we let that define us? Do we let that define who we are as operators, as business owners? Or do we say, you know what, I'm not going to miss that opportunity next time, because I know what to look for. I know what I'm looking for a little bit better, right? You've refined your your capacity to see these deals, so that you do see them a little bit easier. You're not missing them out, and that's all part of growth. That's all part of how we do business. I think it's important, right? It's one of the things that our core beliefs here at JSS. Sometimes, we have setbacks, and we have failures, and we, have missed opportunities. But for me personally, it's just super important is to build momentum and just continue moving forward, no matter what. Right? We can have a setback, we can have a redirect, we can have a failure, but we're going to continuously adjust and continue to move forward. We're not going to allow these failures to define who we are. I've had, like I said, had ton of failures. I've had ton of redirects. I've had a ton of missed opportunities. I've had opportunities that I thought were great, and we went and we spent time, effort, resources, money, and those don't pan out. And you can just say, all right, well, I guess that's it. That's where this goes. Or you can say, all right, I learned that that's not the route we're going to take. We're going to shift, and we're going to use some of these same resources, recapitalize. We're going to move some of this stuff over, and be able to recreate our strategy. And I think as we've grown in JSS, and as we've grown our brand and what we're about, the three pillars that we're constantly pushing, the real estate, the finance, the capital, that's all been part of an evolution of past failures. We've tried going through version A, through version B. I don't know which version we're on now, but maybe G or H, right? And it's evolved into what it is. And that is because of past failures. That is because of past operator mistakes. Try to partner with the wrong people. Try to bring in the wrong type of business. And we've shaped who we are based off of failures. And I think it's important as operators to always be looking for that. Look for those opportunities for growth. Look for those opportunities where you do fail. It's how do you dust yourself off and get back on the horse, if you will. And really it gives you an opportunity to really redefine, or just tighten up what it is you're trying to do. One of the things that constantly talking about on these episodes is know your business model, know your business plan, know what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's just a lot of these failures come out of not knowing what you're trying to do, right? It's people buy an investment property, people invest in a portfolio, people invest in a REIT, people invest in a multifamily, million different types of business that you can try. And you're doing it because, hey, I want to invest, or I want to do this, or I want to flip a property, whatever it is. But if you don't know what your desired outcome, like I talk about many, many times, if you don't know that, the likelihood that you're going to fail is a lot greater, right? Because you don't have that defined path of success that you're putting yourself out for. You're not, you don't know what you're chasing. So if you're chasing a million different things, it's likely that you're not going to get to the right version of it, right? But if you have that defined clearly, your defined and clear exit of what you're trying to accomplish, it makes it easier. And not saying it's impossible to fail, because it's still possibilities, right? But if you're part of what we do is mitigate risk. Part of what we do is give ourselves the best chance of success, right? And that's all part of the strategy. That's all part of the game plan. That's all part of knowing your business, knowing your desired outcomes, knowing your numbers, knowing your metrics, knowing all the things that can push us forward and put us in a better spot, right? So I think failures accelerate your learning. It makes you think about things a little bit differently. Um, it teaches you how to scale. It teaches you how to build around that. It teaches you how to be prepared. It teaches you how to pivot. Teaches you how to motivate yourself to get going again. So I think all those things are super important, as we build our businesses, as we build into successful operators. In any aspect of business or life, for that matter, right? How many of us have failed relationships, failed diet goals or exercise plans? But if you let that define you and you stop, then you really fail, right? So that's it. Just wanted to bring that up and just talk about how I think it's important, to don't take it personally when you fail. Don't let that emotion of it completely drag you down. Uh, you know, uh, Stick it out, analyze it, review it. Make it, let it make you better, and create a better operator out of you. Uh, Refine your systems, refine your underwriting, really, really let it redirect you into the place you need to be. So I don't know. I think that's very important. So I hope that people see those opportunities, those failures as opportunities, refine yourself and get better at it. So hopefully it's something that you can take from it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.